Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving right into the anatomy of an asset's life cycle, decoding depreciation. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Depreciation sounds like heavy accounting jargon, right? But honestly, we're going to completely demystify this foundational principle because, well, it affects literally every single business on the planet. By the end of this, I promise, you're going to see the life of an asset in a completely new light.
So think about it for a second. Where did your asset's value actually go? I mean, everything a business buys, from a sleek new laptop for a software developer to a massive heavy-duty delivery truck, it inevitably loses value the literal minute it gets put to work. It doesn't stay shiny and new forever, right? So as we go through this, we're going to look at exactly how accountants track this invisible, yet absolutely inevitable decline.
Okay, let's dive into the formal definition to anchor ourselves. Depreciation is basically the portion of the cost of a fixed asset that has expired due to its usage, the passage of time, or both. You can think of it as a permanent and continuous drop, or diminution, in the quality, or overall value of an asset. It's an ongoing process, guys. It never sleeps, and it never, ever reverses.
And there's this brilliant phrase from our source material that I absolutely love: lost usefulness or expired utility. It's almost poetic, isn't it? It perfectly captures that visceral reality of machinery wearing down, gears grinding, computers just getting obsolete over time. So what we're really doing here isn't just cold math. We're systematically allocating an asset's original cost over its effective working life. We are literally measuring exhaustion.
So, the crucial question is, how do we actually measure that exhaustion in a standardized way? Well, the amount of depreciation charged to a company's profit and loss account isn't just, plucked out of thin air. It's affected by exactly three specific factors. If you want to truly master depreciation, you just need to wrap your head around these three pillars.
Let's start with factor one, the true cost.
Now, what's really interesting about this first chapter of our asset's life is that determining its true cost is surprisingly strict. Included in the cost is the initial purchase price, for sure, but also transportation costs and erection charges. Basically, any cost incurred to bring that asset to a usable condition completely counts. But excluded from the cost, financial charges, like the interest on the loan you took out to buy it. So paying a crew to physically install a machine in your factory? Yep, that counts toward the total cost. The bank charging you interest for the cash to buy it? No way, that does not count.
Moving right along to factor two, the working life.
While an asset is actively working for the business, we have to ask, how long is its economic or working life really? Well, it's measured in two primary ways. The first is simply time. A factory machine or office furniture might age by the clock, measured in years, months, or total working hours. But the second way is operating capacity, or output. Think about it. A business vehicle ages way more by the kilometers driven than by how many years it just sits in a garage. Or a specialized press might age based on the exact number of units it produces. You basically just align the measurement with how the asset actually expires.
And that brings us to factor three, the scrap value.
Because eventually every asset reaches the end of the line. Scrap value, which you might also hear called salvage or residual value, is the estimated amount a business expects to realize when the asset is eventually sold at the end of its useful working life. But here is the massive takeaway you absolutely need to remember. Unlike the original cost we talked about in factor one, which you can determine with down-to-the-penny accuracy, this scrap value, it's just an estimate. And that working life we just looked at, also an estimate. Actually, when you think about it, they're both based entirely on assumptions about the future.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the final calculation.
Okay, it's time to bring all these pieces together into an elegantly simple three-step logic. Step one, determine your total cost, remembering to include all those transportation and setup fees we talked about. Step two, estimate your scrap value at the end of the asset's useful life. Step three, just subtract that estimated scrap value from the total cost. What you're left with is the total amount of depreciation that needs to be written off during the asset's entire lifetime. It's this highly structured mechanic that takes a massive, daunting upfront cost and just allocates it logically over time.
But, this leaves us with a fascinating paradox to consider as we wrap up this explainer. If the original cost is the only hard, verifiable fact, and the rest of the entire depreciation equation relies completely on estimates and assumptions about working life and scrap value, well,
how accurate is your bottom line really? It kind of challenges you to consider just how much of precise financial accounting actually relies on educated guesswork about the future. Keep that in mind the very next time you look at a balance sheet.